Here's a preview of this episode.
Do you really think people saw your Comedy Central special? Nobody's seen anything.
Right.
But the thing is, nobody knows what it is, and they don't know until after you're set.
Boom. Look at that. Look at Callan. Big picture of Callan in the...
Oh, there you go.
And now, this episode.
Oh. Hey everybody, Mark Masters here. We got Alan Bromwell. It's a little bit of a different thing. We're going to drive down to Colorado Springs. Alan is doing a show down there. I'll watch the show and then we'll talk a little bit on the way back. How you doing, Alan?
Good,
man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
You might get on this. He said there are guest spots available, so I'll tell him that you gave me a ride down.
Heck yeah. I would love that.
You normally do this to a mic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then we make some goals and then we talk about the goals on the way. Actually, we do challenges. Like we challenge each other. You know, I don't know. Maybe if I have somebody who never does crowd work, I might say, why don't you try and do a little bit of crowd work? Or somebody who doesn't do act outs, try and do a little bit of act outs or something like that. Maybe towards the end we'll talk about something to challenge you since you're performing, for sure. But let's go back to the beginning. Like, how long have you been doing comedy?
I've been doing it 6 years and some change.
Okay. And recently passed at Comedy Works?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, recently made it to the pro list, which was my goal for a long time. Now I get paid to do to work there, and
that's amazing.
I thought when I first started out, I thought this is how I make my living. I'll just get on the pro list, and turns out that is not possible at all. But it is a little bit of money, which is nice.
Yeah. And before you were on the pro list, you still worked at Comedy Works. You just didn't get paid.
Yeah, I don't know the exact timeline, but I think it was about 2.5 years that I would work there unpaid. And
what kind of work? Like, why don't you explain the ladder or whatever?
Okay.
Once you get to Almost Famous.
They have this intermediate thing, Almost Famous, where you MC on the weekends and the Wednesday, Sunday shows as well on unpaid, and you occasionally get 7-minute spots, and it's all really great. I mean, I met all kinds of comedians doing that, and that I would have met otherwise. And I know guys who've gone to LA, and I feel like I know more people out there than they do sometimes, just from being able to MC. So I didn't mind not getting paid, but it is the sort of thing that anytime you tell people that, they say that's not right and you should get paid, and you probably should, but it's a way of the club testing who's serious about it.
Yeah. Who are some of the, I don't know, bigger names you've been able to work in front of?
Oh, Dana Gould I met Joey Diaz, Jim Norton, Pete Holmes.
Oh, that's cool. Was Joey at the club, or was that at a bigger theater?
Yeah, Joey was at the club, and it was actually apparently the first time he'd been back there in 15, 20 years. He'd been blacklisted from the club because for something, it sounded really silly, but this server jumped up to hug him, and he like caught her by the ass and was holding her ass while her boyfriend was right there, and I guess her boyfriend was also a server. And so this story back then was he was groping one of the servers, and he got, apparently Wendy apologized to him and was happy to have him back, and he was ecstatic to be back.
Yeah.
But he's from...
He started in Boulder.
Longmont, I think, or Boulder?
Yeah. Well, at least his early
had a house
comedy,
in Longmont.
I don't know where he lived, but his first open mics were up in Boulder.
Yeah.
He's a force, man.
He
crazy.
is.
I don't know,
He's one of the favorite guys I've ever met. He was such a genuine and funny. Like, he's just exactly the same off and on stage, which I've never met anybody like that, where he's really just telling stories all the time, just wants to have a good time. It's not really, I mean, maybe it's an act, I don't know, but that's what he was doing the whole time before and after the show. He was just still telling stories.
Right.
Wanting to get high.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, and now that you're getting paid, is that different? Do you get more spots, less spots?
Actually less in the past month or so, just because I was getting a lot of MC spots, and now I think some of the people who got bumped to Almost Famous, she's testing them in the MC spots.
Okay. And so does that mean once you get paid, you don't host anymore, or you're doing feature spots?
I still do. I hosted Wednesday, I think. But I was getting a lot of Saturday, Sunday, which was amazing. Because you get to do 2 shows. And so 20 minutes of stage time. And like I said, you get to meet people. And it's a sold out show.
Yeah,
you get to go do your best 10 in front of a sold out Comedy Works. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you started comedy in Colorado, in Denver, or?
I started when I was still in college. So I was in Boulder and driving down to Denver because there were only, at that time, there was one mic, and we started another one, so there were 2 mics in Boulder, so we had to drive down to Denver every other day of the week if we wanted to.
Do you remember your very first mic?
Yeah, it was Lair.
Oh yeah? Awesome.
Me and Harry Baber and I went down to Lair, and it's funny, we went down there once when they were remodeling it, thinking it was going to be our first open mic, and we showed up there and it was all boarded up. And then we came back a month later and did it. And I remember I met some people who were still around. It was Roger and Sam. I don't know if Sam was there.
Roger
Norquist, yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember some of the material I did, but I was, in those days, I had just knocked out a bunch of teeth, and I still didn't have like the fake stuff I got now. So I was literally performing with this huge, these 4 front teeth missing. I was going up there, big unkempt beard, joking about how people thought I was homeless.
Huh.
It was a very different time. But that shit was fun too, because it was a totally new thing to me, and so I didn't care, and it was so radically different from what I had been doing. I was going to be an engineer, so I was just happy not to be doing my normal stuff.
Yeah. Something I ask almost everybody is, if you could time travel back and give yourself some advice at that first open mic that would make a difference over the next 6 years for you, what would you tell yourself?
Well, I would warn myself about a lot of things, but the truth is, like, I didn't need to know anything back then. Back then, it was all fun and new and pure, and I wouldn't have changed anything about that for the first few years, because it was just fun. Then there are things I would have warned myself about the politics and jealousy and some of the social things that start to happen that I didn't realize. Like, I just didn't realize that even at a low level, there's a kind of politics and people saying one thing to your face and saying another behind your back, and those things hurt the first time I saw that happening, and I didn't know. I don't know. I just didn't think that was a real thing. So I warned myself about that. But those first couple of years were some of the most fun I've ever had in my life, and I don't think I needed any guidance really. It's just you just keep doing it.
Yeah. Did it go well, that first performance?
That
Would you say?
Well, that was my second performance, I want to say, because I did the improv. Like, they used to have they called it Future Legends. It was like their new talent night.
Okay.
So I'd done that. So it wasn't my first ever performance. So I already kind of had a couple jokes. I remember some stuff worked. I had this thing about cats and dogs that worked. And I don't remember what else. Harry and I were both, we would film each other's sets when we started out, so I probably have a video of it somewhere.
With like a camcorder, or I guess there were iPhones back then. Okay, just low resolution.
So I've got a video of his first set and my first or second set, whatever.
I'm not sure I know who Harry is. Is he still around doing comedy?
Oh, he's still around. He probably will do like the contest or something. He comes out every so often. He's not.
Does he live in Denver or Boulder?
Denver,
Okay.
yeah. He's one of those who he's still got a lot of potential and is funny. I just got caught up with the job and a relationship and stopped coming out as much.
Yeah. Huh.
But yeah, I mean, I started out with, there were 4 of us in Boulder, and we had a club, and we were, people knew us as the Boulder kids when we came down to the Denver mics, and it was Cody Spiker and Harry and Jacob Rupp, who's still doing it.
Oh, yeah. Jacob's great.
And Cody had a good run at it, and maybe she'll come back and do it again, but Cody was doing really well when she decided to take a break.
Yeah, Jacob has recently started hosting at New Talent Night, which is...
He's got to be one of the youngest doing it.
Yeah, probably.
I think when we all started, he was 18, or maybe even 17.
Yeah, he's hilarious. Have you traveled much to do comedy?
Yeah, I mean, I've
Like,
been,
what's you do this full time? Is this, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I get a couple road gigs a month. I work the club. I do stuff like this where we're going in.
Do you want to explain tell us about the show tonight?
Okay, well, I don't know that much about it. It's a new venue that apparently is like, was a church that is now a brewery and a performance space. And I think it's like maybe like a 75-seater. Okay. Maybe bigger than that. And I think this is their second time doing a show here. But yeah, it's called the Carter Payne. They said it's going to be good. It's Friday night, so I'm optimistic.
Okay. Are you the headliner?
Yeah, I don't know what it is. He said Shanae and I are co-headlining, okay. So I don't know.
Shanae Ross,
yeah.
Awesome. Made the New Faces finals this year. Shanae did.
Yeah, she's hilarious. She's really strong.
Yeah. Usually works the improv, I guess. Is that true?
I'm sure it is. I know she's worked the improv before. I don't know. She's probably a feature there.
Okay. And so when you do these kinds of shows, like, what are you hoping to get out of it? Maybe a little money?
Yeah, I mean, I'm working a new chunk of material that I'm gonna base my like, that's my objective, is how I can get this new material to work in there, but I also want to do as well as I can, and then it's always fun to meet new people and to go out, and it's a party, but like in terms of, for my professional thing, I'm gonna put some new material in the middle and see how well I can get it to go.
And do you know how much time you're doing?
No, I think a half hour.
Okay. And so how much news, like, how big is your chunk that you're trying to work out?
Probably like 7 minutes worth of new stuff in the middle. And maybe I'll do, there's another
to it, or is there a chance you get 3 minutes in and people aren't liking it and you just bail? Are you that flexible, or?
With this chunk, I'm not gonna bail on it, because I've done it a few times. There's another like 3 minutes that I'm not sure where it should go, and that I want to put in somewhere, and that I might bail on because it's a little bit more. I just don't know how it fits in.
Okay. That's fascinating. Like, for me, I mean, I'm a year and a half in. I don't think I could pivot mid-performance. Like, I usually have my latest favorite 5 or 10 minutes, and it'd be unusual for me to be like, oh, they don't like this cat stuff, let me do dog stuff, or whatever.
Yeah, well, it depends how much. It's just your experience of doing that in the past, and how many chunks you have. I've got enough where I can replace something if it's not working, but if you only have 15 minutes of material, you don't have a whole lot to.
Yeah, there's not much wiggle room. Plus, I'm sure you've performed thousands of times at this point. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I haven't actually counted, but I'm sure it is.
Yeah. How often would you say you get on stage these days?
I do about, I would say on average, 3 or 4 shows, 3 or 4 mics a week. Probably, I try to get on stage 6, 7 times a week.
Okay. Yeah. So it's got to be 300 times a year, 6 years, 1,800 times, and maybe some breaks here and there, and so at least 1,000 times. Way more than I've been on stage. Probably way more comfortable.
Yeah, I think it's probably a little bit more than that, but yeah, around that.
Okay. Nice. What's the biggest venue you've ever performed at, or largest audience?
You know, I think Sold Out Comedy Works South is about 450, and I don't know that I played anywhere bigger than that. I played.
Who sold out South Club? Do you remember?
A couple of times it's happened. Most recent was Chad Daniels. Dana Gould. Or no, Dana Gould was not down south. There was another one, but it happens pretty often, actually. If it's a fairly big name on a Friday, not a lot of times both shows won't sell out, but
Okay.
Friday early sells out, Saturday early sells out.
Okay.
And I think it's around 425, 450 there. I can't think of really any place. I've done other theaters. I've done the theater in Glenwood, but I think that's only about 300.
Is that the vaudeville place?
At vaudeville place.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think festivals now,
some
but
casinos, right?
yeah, I've done casinos, but a lot of those showrooms are 100 people generally. The ones I've done.
Yeah. Those good shows, would you say, or tough shows?
I don't have a ton of experience with those, but they're generally good. If it's set up like a club, then people who come to it actually are. Some of them are comedy fans, and it's not just random people from the casino that got a coupon.
Right.
Which I've done that too.
Do you do the like Comedy Works Entertainment, whatever that guy Mike?
Yeah, I've done a couple of those.
Okay. Did you do that after you got promoted recently, or can you do that before?
You can do that before. That's totally separate, and I'm not really sure why, but that guy, he's totally separate from the club booking.
Okay.
And I know that because there have been people who've worked with him before they were even on the list.
Okay.
And there's some people on the list who don't work with him.
Were those gigs clean gigs, or
this
have
one,
you done a clean gig through that?
he asked me to do one that he said PG-13, which I hate when people say PG-13 because that doesn't mean anything.
I know, PG-13 movies, there's like really raunchy stuff goes on in PG-13 movies.
I really don't know what PG-13 means. It just means don't piss anyone off.
Right.
But
I mean, can they say the F word in PG-13
I think
movies?
you get one. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know the rules,
I
but
think there's even some nudity.
yeah.
So, huh. Yeah, how much?
And people will say, this is the other one that you get sometimes, they'll go, light R.
Huh.
Like that means something.
Right.
Light R. So I can say, I mean, I wish they would just say exactly what it is. But
Yeah.
the thing is, nobody knows what it is. And they don't know until after you're set. And how people responded to it. If people could actually tell you, like, if I would love it if they go, no sexual material, you can talk about religion, you can talk about drugs, you can say the F word 4 times. If they
Right.
gave me like rules like that, that'd be great.
Yeah.
But nobody has any clue.
How would you describe your voice or persona or act or your comedy? Like,
There's another
know
question
it.
I have no clue how to answer, but
No?
I guess
Well, I can
it's,
answer it for you. I guess. Go
I
ahead.
guess I'm like kind of a contrarian who doesn't pick, who kind of plays both sides of a variety, plays both sides of politics, plays both sides of religion, sexuality, and tries to just a little bit of a provocateur, but not like a not a full troll, but kind of a
Well, that's a good word for you.
curmudgeon.
Yeah, yeah. How could you do 30 clean?
Not squeaky clean. I can do, and I have done 30 PG-13.
Okay.
Like, if I'm squeaky clean, I really only have about 12, maybe 15.
Okay.
To do 30, I have to. I mean, I could cut all the profanity out of it, but I'm gonna still probably do some jokes about like condoms and like, you know, some light sexual material and some drug material.
Right.
So I'm kind of on the line with all that stuff. When I do corporate, it's always a guessing game of, am I gonna be clean enough for them?
Right.
I'm about 50-50.
Are you interested in doing more of that, or is that not really your style and not where you want to head? Especially in light of what you said earlier about, at one point you hoped that once you got paid at Comedy Works, you might be able to make a living off that, and your recent realization that that's not come to pass.
Well, I appreciate the money of doing corporate, and it's so individual. Like, it depends on the owner, really. Like, if the owner is okay with my sense of humor, then it's totally fine. Then I can be raunchy, and there's not going to be a problem. If the owner's stuffy and really conservative about certain issues, then yeah, it's going to be a problem, even if I do clean it up, just because my attitude is wrong. Even if I do clean it up, it's still going to kind of ruffle feathers, just because like I said, that's a little bit of my humor, is kind of poking the bear a little bit.
Right.
But I like them. I mean, the money's great. I've done gigs where there were people who were upset by it, and as long as I still get paid, and a lot of times I can talk to them afterwards and recommend some different acts for them if they're looking for squeaky clean. So I don't mind it. The money's always good. It's definitely not like a career trajectory, though, because I mean that's not me. And there are guys who make the majority of their living doing corporate, and I don't really want that for myself. But I respect it. It's probably the best money you can make, short of really being a TV star and being at that level where you're doing theaters,
Netflix specials and stuff.
Yeah. There's also the cruise comedian path, which is similar, because some of them you can be dirty, but most of them you have to be clean for the early shows.
Yeah, you have to be able to do both.
So I haven't really gone down that path either, for the same reason.
Yeah, that sounds
great money.
And it sounds fun too, right?
I bet it is.
But I don't know. I've talked to a comic who does that, and it sounds a little bit, I don't know, like you can't fraternize with the guests, and you don't get a very nice room, and you're kind of like isolated, right? If you have any, like, your friends are 3,000 miles away, and really like a million miles away, because I don't know if you've ever been on a cruise, but they usually don't. I mean, I haven't been on one in like 20 years, but they didn't have, back then, they didn't have internet or phones or really any kind, like you were kind of leaving Earth for like a week to get on this boat.
Well, I would be okay with that, I think, more so, but I didn't remember that part about you can't talk to the guests. That's bizarre.
No, I think
you have to just
talk to them. You just.
But you hang out.
I don't know.
Don't you hang out with the crew?
Yeah.
And like the other.
I think you eat in the crew area, maybe.
Yeah. That is kind of weird.
Yeah. I don't know. It still sounds kind of cool. It'd be fun to do occasionally, I guess is what I'm saying. I don't think it would be necessarily fun to do year round. I think you.
Yeah.
Although I don't know that that's that different than being a road dog and just driving around in your car all around the country. You're also disconnected from wherever your home base is.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, all the guys I know who do it seem to love it.
I think it's very hard to get, so it's an accolade for sure.
Well, one of the guys, Phil Palisol, has told me several times that he will submit people, but he just says you got to be ready, because if they pass, then you've got to at least 5 years before they'll take a look at you again.
Huh. Interesting.
And what he said was, you need 3 separate, clean 15-minute sets to be a feature. Headliners more.
Wow. Huh.
And I don't know what cruise line that is, but just when he told me that, I don't have 3 separate, clean 15-minute sets, so I'm not about to do it.
Right. What's the longest comedy road trip you've taken?
I think it was around 15 days, maybe 17 days.
Holy cow! Where to?
We did. I've done 2 now that were about that length. One that was up through Idaho and Montana and Utah, and then the other one I did this past summer was started going up through Idaho and then went the other way. Went through Washington and what's the other one? Oregon, Washington, and Idaho.
Okay, awesome. How did that work? Were you just going to mics, or did you book things, or was there a producer who put together a run?
The one that was through the Northwest like that, Tobias Livingston put together, and he's
so funny.
I don't know if you'd call himself a producer, but he's good at it.
Okay. And were you doing shows every night, or most nights?
Yeah, we had one night off in Seattle that we ended up doing an open mic, but other than that, every night we had a show.
That's awesome. By the way, can you Google Maps or whatever maps?
Oh, sure.
The venue?
Sure.
Just let me know if I need to exit. Wow, that's cool. Did you ever do 2 shows in a night?
I'm trying to think.
And what kind of venues are these? Like breweries or?
We did a lot of bars and breweries. We did a couple theaters. I think there was one night we had 2 shows in Portland. I think we had a night that had 2 shows, and then for the most part they're just one-nighters. We actually, like, it was not a lot of stuff in the city. Like in Seattle, in Portland, it was harder to find. It's harder to set up a one-nighter than like in Eugene, Oregon, or in the Dalles, Oregon, or in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. All these places that we just went to a bar and it was like their monthly.
Was it you and Tobias, or were there other people in the car?
No, he actually didn't. He set it up and didn't come on this one. He had just been on a run and done some of the same venues, so he that's how he set it up. He went out there once, and then he set it up for another crew of us to go out the next month and do it.
That's pretty cool. And what did he get a cut? If you can talk about that, or is he just being nice?
No, we had talked about it, but actually he did it all as a gift to us because he was trying to. What he said, he was using us to try out new venues, but I think he was really just being generous. We would have given him a cut.
Nice. Yeah, and I'm sure that helps for this summer, for example. You know, if he sent good, funny comedians, then the bar owners or whatever would be encouraged to book him again.
Yeah, and almost all of them were great shows. There was none of them were bad either. There were 1 or 2 that just not that many people or wasn't set up quite right. But for the most part, it was killer.
Bring your own like PA equipment?
We did, yeah, and we had to set it up a few times. A lot of the places had their own. Nice. But yeah, actually, Aaron Maslow came and brought his PA.
Nice. Speaking of Aaron Maslow, hold on a second. He's got a whole chapter in the book Not Good Yet, which is the sponsor of this little web series. You're in this book as well. You know that?
I saw my name once. I thumbed through. I saw some of Aaron's stuff too.
Yeah.
He has a whole chapter?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. You have to check it out. Him and Michael Isaacs and Wendy Curtis have their own chapters.
That was cool that you interviewed Wendy for it.
I think it was cool of her to sit down with me. I don't think I could keep doing this another 5 years. I might not get 5 minutes with her, but she sat down with me for like 45 minutes, which was incredible. She was very generous with her time, which I appreciated. So yeah, it was interesting. It was fun to pick her brain.
Yeah. She's very, I don't know what the norm is, but it seems to me she's, for an owner, pretty involved and enjoys being involved in the actual comedy of it.
Yeah. Well, I guess there's like a system for signing up for your spots, right? So, how do you find out when you're gonna go up?
So it's like a weekly deal that's still pen and paper, and you
have to drive by the club, or you call and ask a manager to look for you or something?
Yeah, you can call and have somebody sign up, but generally you go there and check the boxes next to your name. There's just a big Excel spreadsheet, and they release it on Wednesdays. And so you find out Wednesday through the following Tuesday.
Got it.
What you're doing, and occasionally you find out at 4:30 p.m. that you're emceeing the 7:30 Wednesday show that evening at the South Club, and you get.
And do you find that because you drove in and looked, or does somebody call you?
No, so it gets emailed.
Okay, all right.
But if you talk to anybody, they're all checking their phones constantly on Wednesday, just especially if they signed up for Wednesday.
Right.
So you might have to go get down there.
Sure. How do you juggle that with, I don't know, like, are you signed up for tonight, for example? Or were you signed up for
I'm
tonight?
trying to think if I don't think I did sign up for tonight, but I often do sign up even if I've got a show, depending on because the honest truth of it, and any comic will tell you, is if you get a better paying gig or a gig with better exposure, you just cancel it's unless it's really a thing of loyalty to a good friend who got you a show. The business end of it is, if you get a much better opportunity, you should take it.
Right.
So I'll sign, to go do 2 shows for Sold Out Comedy Works Saturday. There's not much better than that.
Yeah, that's incredible. So, all right, couple questions. I'll throw them both out at you. Worst gig ever, or craziest comedy story, and what's your, like, I don't know, what do you hope to be doing in 5 or 10 years? Do you think you'll still be doing comedy? And like, what's your path from here? 2 very different questions.
Yeah. Worst gig, there's a lot of possibilities for that.
You can tell more than one.
I don't know that I had a bad one recently that comes to mind, just because the owner got so mad at me. But I guess, I don't know. I guess the worst gig I've ever done, but the money was so good, so I'm reluctant to say this. But it was a country club, and I don't know what it was. First of all, there were maybe 30 people there. They told me it was going to be sold out. There's 30 people in a little ballroom. They don't know how to adjust the lights, so it's just bright lights, which is already bad for me, because when people can look at each other and decide if it's okay to laugh, and they're spending time thinking about, I don't know if that's okay, it's already bad. And I can see that happening right off the bat. And they just, I don't know what it was. I think they thought it was a very conservative room, and I don't know what it was, but 10 minutes in, I was already fighting them, and I walked the table at one point, talking about politics. So I think they thought I was a Democrat, and they were just sick of they were like done with me, even though I make it very clear I'm not a Democrat. But I think that's what happened. I'm not positive, but I walked the table. The rest of the people there, really, there's a lot of crossed arms. I listened to the recording, and I did make people laugh the whole time, but you could feel the tension in that recording, and I was just mad at them. And
Were you the headliner?
Yeah, and I did 40-ish minutes.
Were there other people on the show?
Well, here's the other part of it. So I had Derek Stroop come open for me, and I don't know, you know, he obviously he is a very talented headliner in his own right. So he, you know, it might have been a better show if I had just opened for him, but this was they reached out to me and said bring a feature, and Derek and I work well together, so I brought Derek. Anyway, Derek did really well, and they liked him a lot, and they just did not like me at all from the start. And I don't know, there was one table of people who really liked me a lot, and I thought maybe that would have made it worth it if I could work with, you know, if they could do something for me. But I felt so terrible because the vast majority of those people did not like it, maybe didn't get what I was doing, or just didn't like me. And then I got very, it got kind of aggressive towards the end. Yeah, I mean, I didn't single anybody out, but I just blamed them for how bad the show was the whole time, and insulted their intelligence, their values a lot to try to make it better for me. I don't know, it didn't. And it was just long, and it felt bad. And then I got off stage, immediately apologized to the guy who booked me, and you know, nothing happened, and I still got paid. But and like I said, some people really liked it, but a lot of them did not. And I also felt bad for Derek because it probably was awkward for him. Like he had a good energy going, and then to have to live in my reality for a little bit after that, I'm sure he wasn't happy. Yeah. But we ended up, we went out and partied afterwards, and it was fine. Cool. But I thought about it for weeks afterwards. It was one of those, it stays with you.
Huh. Do you ever bring merch to shows like that?
That would have been funny to try to sell them the fucking t-shirt after calling them all cocksuckers. No, I don't have any, and I mean, I have an album that I will give away sometimes because people I don't even want to try and get money for that. I've thought about it, and every road comic I know who does t-shirts tells me to do it, and it apparently is great money. But it is a pain in the ass to bring them around.
Yeah, sure.
And my feeling on it is, people don't ever wear those t-shirts. I mean, maybe once in a while a comic will wear another comic's t-shirt. I've never heard of anyone else wearing these t-shirts. Most of the time they have some terrible, dirty joke on them.
Right.
First of all, that you're not going to wear out. And then I think people just want to support you.
Yeah, it's more like trading a tangible good for, it's like a tip in disguise, basically.
It really is, yeah. And so for that reason, I've heard people say just bring stickers, which seems really, and just do them for a donation is what I've been told to do, and I have still yet to do that. We talked about doing it for a tour, and then nobody took the initiative on it, so we didn't end up getting any.
Right. Okay. How about, do you have a terrible story, like a weird venue, or nobody showed up? Holy cow, did you see that?
No.
The car just threaded the needle between those two. The white one up there.
Oh, wow.
Like a crazy venue, or nobody showed up to a gig, or
nobody showed up.
No
I've done a bunch of times. Yeah, I mean, I've been on a couple where they canceled it, and some where they maybe should have, but those actually are never the worst ones, because those people,
they really,
if you're gonna do it, they really want to make it work.
Yeah. Huh, that's an interesting.
But you asked me about what do I 10, 15-year plan?
Yeah.
I just want to be doing, I mean, definitely in 10 years I want to be doing theaters. I really am open to, like, I think I could be a really good writer, and I think I am good on screen, but as far as just what I want, it's just to do big stand-up shows. I like I like acting well enough, and I like writing well enough, but it's not really my goal. If I think it'd be, especially if it could help me sustain a stand-up career, then and I'm even more interested in it. And I have written a few, not a full script, but I've written down ideas for movies. So I don't know, maybe I'll shift more toward that. But really, stand-up is the only thing I ever really wanted out of this, and I just want to be good shows.
Yeah. Are you paying all your bills right now with stand-up income? Or close to that? Or
yeah,
okay.
Just by upsetting people at country clubs. I make rent for 4 months. Sorry, what did you ask?
For how long have you been subsisting off stand-up completely?
It's been at least 2 or 3 years, I think. Wow. I think it's been at least 3 years I've been doing it.
That's great.
And I used to be, it's only recently that I started doing more corporate and like booked one-nighter events like that. When I started, the way I was doing it was I ran an open mic, which was $375 a month. Then I had a show that I ran that was another $200 a month because it was a weekly show. It was $50 a show.
Okay.
And then, so I had a base income of $575, and I only needed another couple hundred in gigs per month, and that was very manageable. And then since then, I don't do the open mic anymore or the weekly showcase, so I have to build each month from scratch. But when I started out, if you want to make a good income doing this, you should run an open mic at the very least and try to get $100 a month or $100 a week for it if you can.
Right.
So it says do this. Exit 141. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Thanks. Okay.
But that was my goal, to make a living
You're doing it.
stand-up.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
That's impressive.
It's not glamorous, but the part of the thing is that you have to cut your lifestyle first. That's the first thing that makes it possible. Is
Right.
Just go, what standard of living can I handle to make this happen? Because you're obviously not gonna, I was, when I was putting numbers together at first, I was like, what if I could make $4,000 a month doing so? You cannot make $4,000.
Right.
Maybe if there's nobody in Denver doing that I know of.
Yeah.
So you have to lower your sights a little bit.
$4,000 is like $50K a year. Am I doing that math right?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty modest income. Okay, right on. Okay, let's talk about some goals for your performance tonight. You think 30.
Mm-hmm.
You want to try out some new material. Can you describe that material in a word without giving away too much, or a couple words? Like what
It's
would
about
you call it?
animals.
Okay,
It's about animal sex.
Trying to do your new animal sex bit, or work on that some. How old is that bit? You think?
Couple months old.
Okay.
I've been doing it at Mike's for probably 6 months, but only started really putting it in my shows like a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a month ago.
Let's talk about writing. Do you have a process for writing?
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't know if it's actually the process that works, but I do, just so I can feel like I'm doing something systematic. But my process is, I write ideas by hand in like a regular old journal. Then I go back after writing those, transcribe it onto my computer, and at that point I'll tweak it, edit it, sharpen it a little bit, and then once it's on my computer, then I'll put it in I have a folder for stuff I want to try at a mic, or stuff that that's maybe a new tag that I want to try on a show or whatever, so I organize it, and then once it's in the queue, ideally I actually do that.
Okay.
I don't really, it's all it's more ethereal than that, but intellectually that's what I think my process is. Really, when I come up with a great new bit, it might not go through that process.
Sure.
But
it's just a thought you have in your head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do that what I just described on a daily basis, so I can feel like I'm working.
Right. Well, I'm sure you got a lot of time to fill. You don't have I mean, you're working 10 hours a week or something.
Sleep so long. And then you got to do something.
Do you do I don't know, social media stuff, or do you have other angles? Are you filming sketches, or? I'm
trying. My plan right now is to create YouTube content, but really, I've spent most of my time writing, going and doing open mics, and trying to get myself booked. And
does that take time? Do you like email bookers and send tape?
Yeah, I've started to do that, and I mean, it is. You gotta. I guess if you've had a sales job where you do cold calls, you're probably okay at it. But I never did that, so I had to adjust myself to. People don't even get back to you for the most part. So once you get okay with that, then it's fine. But that was another one of those things. Maybe I would tell my young self that. That's going to be a lot of not just people who are jealous, but people who just don't give a shit. Who. And even more than that, some people will resent you just because who do you think you are for trying to be a comedian or trying to get work here?
Now, are you talking about venue owners, or are you talking about showrunners?
Club owners, all of that, yeah.
Okay.
Club owners and other comics who book rooms and everything.
Yeah.
Festival runners.
All right. Well, we're almost here, so we're gonna wrap in a couple minutes for.
Yeah, I think that's it.
And then we'll talk again on the way back. I don't think. Is there anything else you want to talk about before you go into this show? Who's on the lineup that you know? Shanae Ross, we know that, and
I think Chanel Hughes is also on.
Oh, okay, awesome.
And what did you say that?
And Matt Gabriel. You said Matt.
But you said a guy.
Callan Reese.
Callan
Reese, who I'm bringing him his newspaper. He boom. Look at that. Look at Callan. Big picture of Callan in the
oh, there you go.
In the Vale Daily. Pretty exciting. So I've been holding on to this for a long time. All right, we'll see you guys on the flip side. Okay?
Right.
Alan Bromwell. All right. Hey, we're back. I'm Mark Masters, Alan Bromwell.
Welcome back.
We're headed back to Denver from Colorado Springs.
So how do you know when it dies?
That screen will go off.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But usually it takes like 20 minutes before I notice it. And,
good. Good.
And then I just put a show note that, hey, the camera dies at the end. That's happened to, I'd say, about a third of the episodes.
Okay. Good.
So,
well, update to the viewers. Mark got on the show.
Yeah, that was freaking great.
Did a great 7 minutes or so to open the show. 5 minutes?
5 minutes. Bullet spot. After the host. Yeah, it was good. I was happy. I'm doing that 5 minutes a bunch next weekend. 3 different shows. I'm doing longer things, but that 5 minutes, and I'm in a competition in Aspen on next Sunday. It's like 10 days from now. So it's good to get another crack at running that 5 minutes. And I was trying to add some stuff to a joke. Like I had a couple new tags and didn't go great. I'll have to listen to the tape. A different new tag worked great, so that's good. And yeah, it was good. It was good. I would say my challenge was to get on the show, and I accomplished that.
So you were planning on that?
I was hoping to get on the show. That would have been nice. I wouldn't say I was planning on it.
Well, but, I didn't even have to do anything to try to get you on the show because Chanel didn't show up.
Yeah.
And so he was looking for somebody.
Lucky for me. Lucky break. That's how you make it in this business.
I know, it's just women don't show up.
Right time, right place.
For the show.
I have no comment.
It's
I will say that
more
Shanae
frequently women, but
crushed.
Shanae was great.
She was great, and she'll be on the Vale Comedy Show and Aspen Comedy Show this a week from now. So I'm excited to work with her. That'll be cool. You did great as well.
Thank you.
You were awesome. What did you do? 25?
Around, yeah, I did 25 or so.
Okay.
24, 25.
Yeah. It went great. How did your animal sex stuff go? To be honest, I couldn't identify a new 7 minutes in there. I think everything.
It was all that when I said I'm going to do the list,
Okay,
And
yeah,
I do
yeah.
that big
I've
thing.
seen you do that at Comedy Works. So
I've done it. Oh, you have?
Yeah,
Okay.
I guess it was thick skin, so maybe that doesn't count as like.
I did it at Thick
your-
Skin once.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thick Skin, you can get
That's
away
like
with
that's
whatever.
like your open mic.
Yeah.
For me, that's like the Super Bowl. But
Oh,
for
yeah,
you,
that's
that's
an
your
open
open mic.
Yeah.
That's the difference between Alan and I. That's
Well,
the point.
yeah, I did do it. Have done it at Thick Skin once. I did it one other time at
And
Comedy
it killed.
Works.
It did really well.
Yeah, so that, and then there's a little part at the end that I wasn't pleased with, but for the most part, 5 out of the 7 of the minutes were good.
Nice.
Were you doing the same 5 minutes you're going to do for that contest?
Yeah. Well, 80% of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just recently, I had a different, I have this bit about trash that's like 2 to 3 minutes, and I love it, but it's just, I don't know if I've been telling it too much or what's going on, but I took it out, and basically, I don't know if this is like a confidence issue, but I decided to just do shorter jokes. Like a whole bunch of short jokes. So if somebody doesn't like a joke, if the joke doesn't go well, I'm into a new joke right away. The trash bit, sometimes people aren't on board with it, and it goes really long, and it's awkward in a 5-minute set to have 2+ minutes just like not resonate well.
How many laughs in
There are a
2+
lot,
minutes?
but I think maybe I'll figure this out later, but part of the problem might be that it's not structured in a way that, like in a traditional setup punchline way. It's more like a rant, silly story with a lot of exaggeration. And there are funny lines in it that get laughs when the audience is receptive, but it is, I don't know.
Well,
I pulled it out.
If I had to do my best 5, I'm not doing any longer bits. It's all going to be quick stuff I know works.
Right.
Some people I know would do a quick joke or two and then a long bit that they know they believe in, but I don't. For me, if it's a quick set, even if it's 7 minutes, there's maybe one longer bit in there and a bunch of short jokes. Like, you just don't know. You don't know the crowd you're getting.
Right.
5 minutes, I would do all my best short jokes.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've transitioned to. I mean, I could put in some more one-liners, which I might do, because I actually have a little extra time. Like I'm at like 4:30 right now. I did an extra, I'd call it 3 laughs that wasn't in my plan set, but I didn't get the light, so I didn't know how much time I had, so I just
Do you record yours?
Yeah.
You go back and see how long it was?
I actually filmed it, so
okay.
I'm looking forward to see that, because I'm doing a new thing too, where I don't take the mic out of the stand. I used to always take the mic out of the stand, and I want to see. This will be the first time I've seen myself on film. You know what I'm doing with my hands, and if I look comfortable, and if I'm acting out at the right spots. Where like I have one like kangaroo hop. Like it's not like an act out really, but I just I hop. Some kind of motion. So I'll watch that and see if the audience. My favorite thing when I film myself is to make sure some of the audience is in the view, and then I basically key off their reaction, like to see if something's working. So, you can hear the laughter, but when you can see people's faces, you can determine whether they like something or not. We'll see how it goes.
I mean, there may be a mix of people in the video, because unless it's sometimes you get everybody, but a lot of times there's gonna be some people who don't like it.
Yeah, that's true.
That's why you don't want to look.
Well, like when I film at open mics, sometimes the opposite is true, where there's 20 people in the audience, 18 are comics, there's 2 regular people, and those are really the only 2 I'm watching. Like you can't hear the laughter sometimes at an open mic, but you can see the 1 or 2 people that are actually into it and paying attention, and I watch watch their reactions. And
Do you watch back everything you do?
no, I used to.
Yeah.
I used to. Well, no, I didn't always watch it. I listen. I think I listened to every set. Now I listen to like 8 out of 10 sets.
That's pretty good.
I watch. You know, I only film.
I'm down to like 2 out of 10 at this point.
Yeah, I can imagine. Like once you do it enough, once you know it works. Like I don't know that my stuff works. Even stuff that I know works, let's say in Denver, you know, I haven't tried it in rural areas or, you know, different places, you know.
Yeah. Well, it might even be the place where it should work, and it didn't work one night. I'm not listening to that because I know I did it wrong. I mean, I know in my mind, I know I have it burned in the way it works. Sometimes I'll try to do it a different way, and but like I don't want to listen to a joke that I know is good not work.
Yeah, that'll mess with your confidence.
I could do it. I probably should. Honestly, some of the guys I respect most, Hippie Man, for example, listens to every single set he does. Oftentimes on the bus ride home, taking notes on a white pad, and then, you know, we'll evaluate and make adjustments based on his notes, which is really what all of us should be doing. But I
try and do that.
I can listen to any, but here's my problem. Any good, even the good sets I have, I don't always want to listen to.
Right. Yeah. Well, you
and yet
also
I'm making other people listen to
you
it.
do longer sets. Like a lot. My average
But
set
he does
length
too.
is
That's what I
3
mean.
minutes.
Like, yeah. So, agreed.
it's not
Agreed. It's
hard to
easier
listen
for
to
you,
it.
but I mean, you think about this guy, and he's older than all of us, and he's listening to a half hour, or probably, 20-minute sets when he's doing them at County Works. He's listening to a 20-minute set on the early show, 20-minute set from the late show, taking notes on what worked and didn't, on what he might have done differently, listening to yourself for 40 minutes on the way home. I don't know. That's, to me, like, even if I had 2 great sets, I probably only want to listen to one of them, the one that I thought was better, and even that, I want to listen to a few bits. To listen to yourself that much is difficult.
Yeah. Well, and also, like, that requires you to be changing your material all the time. Like,
he doesn't. He doesn't.
Okay.
No, I mean, he might have a new line here and there, but it's the same jokes. That's what I mean. Like, he's listening to his act. He knows it.
Okay.
He just wanted to hear how he did it that night. Because I know his act by now. I've heard it enough. But he wants to make sure he's doing it right.
Interesting.
Which I admire. I'll listen if I do something new. If something went differently.
Yeah.
If I had a particularly good set where my rhythm was different or something like that, I'll listen to it. But I don't listen to a lot. I listened to some clip of Robin Williams talking, and an interviewer asked him if he ever listened to recordings of himself, and he said, God, no. That's bad juju. I would never do that.
Huh.
And I kind of understand what he's talking about. I mean, especially for a guy like him, where it's all seat of the pants, and he's got bits, but he's making it up. Like, he wants to maintain that originality, that novelty every time he does it. You don't want to... The trap of listening to recordings is that you think that's the way you do it. But that was the way you did it for that crowd, and it worked for that crowd. But if you listen to a recording and you go, that's the correct way. Like when I put out 45, 50 minutes of my material on Bandcamp, I listened to it, and it did affect me a little bit because I listened to myself so much that I thought, oh, that's the way you do that bit. But that's not necessarily true. That was just, it worked that night. It worked for that crowd. But I started to think, the way you said it that time is the way it is on your album. so you better do it that way. But that's not a good way to think, because I found myself in the few months after that repeating the way I did it exactly, and it doesn't necessarily work right.
Huh.
And I'm thinking, what the fuck's wrong with you? That's on my album.
Right.
But they don't care.
Yeah.
They don't give a shit.
Yeah. What do you think of the room tonight?
It was good. I always have issues when I thought that room was too bright.
Yeah.
But the crowd was young. They enjoyed the show. And there was maybe half my act I felt like they all liked, and then there was a portion of it that it was just for some of them. But I liked it.
Huh. No, I thought you did well consistently the whole time. People were enjoying it.
Yeah, but I mean, like, well, thank you. But I mean, my perception is that I do what I think of as more relatable material, and then I sort of do less relatable material that I really like, and see who really the people who like that stuff I find are like the people who want to talk to me afterwards and hang out, and the people who would like all the shit I do, right, versus the people who like the stuff I do that I know is universal and funny, which is great. I mean, I don't know if all comedians think in that way, but I have a set of my act that is universal. I'll do it on TV if I get the chance. Anytime I'm trying to just kill, I'll do that material. And then I have some stuff that is more maybe divisive or a different type of material. But that stuff, when people like that stuff, those are the people who actually check me out and want to look at my social media and want to see me again.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a trade-off, but that stuff I find, you know, when people like that stuff, I connect with them better. When
Austin Brinker brought you up on stage, he mentioned a credit for you that I wasn't familiar with. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I mean, I told him to say...
You're a regular at Comedy Works, and you were recently on...
Oh, I did a Comedy Central showcase.
What does that mean? What is that?
There was a Comedy Central Up Next showcase maybe 3.5, 4 months ago.
In Denver?
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, and they filmed it. I don't know. I don't think I made it on TV. Otherwise, I'd be saying I was on Comedy Central. But I was on the showcase.
Where,
and
was it at Comedy Works?
Mm-hmm.
Huh, cool.
Yeah, and they were scouting people for...
Did anybody from Denver make it on TV that you're aware of?
Not that I know of, but I honestly don't... I've never seen Up Next as a show on Comedy Central, so I don't know about it.
Huh.
But they were... My understanding of it was they were scouting for people. So I use that as credit, because people like to hear Comedy Central.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good credit. That's cool.
And there were Comedy Central people there in the audience, and I saw some of them, but I don't even know what that is. I think it's, the idea is that it's a new stand-up show they've got. Comedy Central used to have one called Premium Blend. They used to have a number of like up-and-coming stand-up shows. Now they had one on Netflix. They had a series of 20-minute showcases.
Yeah.
Were they 15? Yeah.
I don't know. One of the two.
And it's not as much as it used to. There used to just be like TV that was up-and-coming stand-ups, and they don't do it. I don't know. Netflix has got a series of them too. There's definitely room for more. I remember watching Premium Blend as a kid and liking a lot of those guys, and a lot of them aren't doing it anymore. But I saw some people on there who are still doing it. Yeah. I don't know how long, and those were like 10-minute sets on Premium Blend.
How long was your set at this showcase?
We were just doing 7s, I think.
Okay.
And they were filming it, but I don't know if anyone actually got.
Did they bring in their own cameras, or were they just using their Comedy Works?
Yep, they had their own too, but I don't know of anybody who made it on TV. In fact, I don't even know if that is a show.
Huh. I mean, who knows? It could come out.
It's
in
a
2
Comedy
years.
Central project
Or it
that
could
they're
be
doing.
a digital thing, like a web.
Yeah, dude, I've been on 5 or 6 things that people said were going to be on Netflix, and I've not seen any of them yet.
Huh.
It's just the nature of it.
Doing stand-up or acting?
Yeah, stand-up showcases that people said, like, they were going to do. There's a showcase they do at Comedy Works called The Nice and Naughty. Mitch Fatel's Nice and Naughty.
Christmas time.
That is a Netflix pilot.
Huh.
I was on the Netflix pilot, but I don't know if anything ever happened. I was on a Netflix pilot at the Bug Theater called some Denver's It Might Be a Netflix special or something like that.
Huh. Was Sammy Anser on that?
Sammy
show?
Anser, yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I remember that. Also.
And I could tell you 2 or 3 more at Comedy Works where people were there with cameras saying, we're going to pitch this to Netflix. But my understanding is Netflix is saturated, and they're probably getting pitched all kinds of stand-up, and they don't accept a lot of it. But I've gotten even paid for some of this stuff, and
Cool.
you get excited about it and you go party afterwards. But that's the nature of it, is you don't have any clue if it's going to make it.
Right. Would it change any? Like, would you still be able to do that material, or would you burn that material? Like,
I've signed contracts of this is the material you're doing on this, and the verbiage I looked at last time I did it was, you agree that this is the material you wrote for this special, and you will not perform it for a year or 18 months or whatever. But in my mind, like, I didn't write it for that special. I wrote it long before that. So I don't even, I got lawyers in my family. I don't give a shit. I didn't write it for that special. I'll sign the thing and you pay me and you put it on TV. I've talked to people. I've literally talked to guys who they did Comedy Central specials and they repeated that material on other media, and they don't care. Like, who's checking it?
right.
Everyone gets so paranoid about this stuff, but it's your material, and for somebody to have it produced on their network and notice that you did it somewhere else, people don't really watch
Right.
comedy like that. I've talked to people who repeated material that they legally said they wouldn't. That seems like something they just kind of scare you with, but if you change a couple words, there's no laws about this stuff. There's no real, the closest thing I've seen is when bands get in trouble for ripping off a song or something.
Right.
But even that, you've got to be huge. You've got to be Led Zeppelin if somebody's going to sue you for stealing their song. If you're an up-and-coming comedian, do you really think they're going to spend the legal money to get you in trouble for repeating a dick joke you did on their special? I don't think anybody's got the time or money to do that. And I've heard so many comics say they disregarded it that it just doesn't faze me, really. I'm sure, if you do an hour HBO special and then you straight away go do it on Conan, it's probably a bad idea. But other than that, for somebody who's on their way up, I don't think it's worth worrying about. There actually a guy I worked with, whose name I won't say, but a guy I worked with at a club in Lincoln, Nebraska, joked on stage about, this is the material I did in my Comedy Central special that I'm not supposed to do for another 6 months, and then he would just do it.
Huh.
And it killed, and nothing happened, and people think it's funny. And how, do you really think people saw your Comedy Central special? Nobody's seen anything.
Right.
maybe it wouldn't be wise to do it in LA or something, but if on a or just for laughs or something where somebody important might see it. But for the most part, I think there's a lot of stuff like that I've noticed in stand-up, and I would include joke theft in that regard. Like, I'm not saying it's okay to steal a joke. It's definitely wrong, but people get so uptight about it to the point where people are worried about things where, you know, yeah, if you stole a bunch of material, that's one thing, but if you have a joke that's similar to another person's joke and you do it on TV and they did it on TV, it really doesn't matter. It really doesn't, unless you and the other comedian have a beef about it, or, you know, somebody else is going to make a huge deal about it. But I've heard so many people make huge ordeals about this sort of thing where it's really, you know, the crowd has no clue, and if you do it differently, then it's fine. If you're stealing a classic joke, that's one thing. If you are the type of comic who doesn't work and you take from other people, that's one thing. But people are so paranoid about a joke that is similar to somebody else's joke, and I don't think it really matters. And I mean, apart from the drama that we all know about Carlos Mencia and like maybe the Louis C.K. Dane Cook thing or whatever, like, it rarely turns into anything. And actually, like, Carlos Mencia, yes, did steal, but the second biggest example I can think of would be the Dane Cook Louis thing. And if you listen to those jokes, I'm not convinced at all that Dane Cook owes Louis anything or that he stole. Like, there's the same premise,
Right.
but I watched both the jokes. I didn't think it was that bad. Then there was the Amy Schumer thing, which I wasn't convinced that any of her stand-up was stolen, but it seemed like they did rip off some sketches on her when she had that sketch show. I watched some sketches that were like identical to other sketch shows. They stole some Mad TV sketches and stuff. But her stand-up, it was like, it's the same premise, but they were like street jokes. Like they said she stole a Patrice O'Neill joke about, it's like those jokes about what you call like crazy sex moves, like the angry pirate, where you like come in a girl's eye and then kick her in the shin, so she's jumping around on one leg and she's got one eye covered. But it's like, that's a street joke. Yeah. Like, that Patrice doesn't own that. So I don't know. I feel like a lot of that stuff's overblown.
Huh. I had we've talked about this before. I had a thing happen today where I was listening to old, like 15-year-old comedy album, Death Ray or Space Ray. Have you heard of this? It was recorded at Sketchfest in San Francisco a long time ago, and like young David Cross is on it, and Todd Barry and Maria Bamford, and it's kind of cool because there are a lot of famous comics on it that they're not as polished as they are now.
Yeah.
You know? And I totally heard a joke that I wrote like 6 months ago. It was slightly different. The punchline, the misdirect is the same. The actual punchline is slightly different. Like, it would be the difference between kicking in the shin and kicking and hitting in the knee with a hammer.
Right.
Like, same basic idea.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, you got to be kidding me, man. And that joke is done great. Like, I've told it on shows and at open mics, and
but that's what I mean. You never heard that guy do it,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. But he definitely did it before me, and it's on an album like more than 10 years earlier.
Dude, but this is the thing. People go, Star Wars is basically the Bible, or they'll say, and they said that about Harry Potter too. Harry Potter is basically just a Christ story. Yeah, it is. There are archetypes. Yeah. There are but nobody's saying, it's plagiarism. If it's the same story. And with jokes, unless it's word for word. Really, for me, if the premise is the same, that's one thing. If the punchline is word for word the same, then yes, that's a problem. But if the premise is the same, yeah, well, comics have been talking about the difference between men and women. Comics have been talking about sex, dating, food, fucking all this stuff has been talked about since there's been comedy. So to me, you know, even with the Robin Williams stuff, which I know Robin Williams did lift, but some of the stuff they say Robin Williams lifted, I don't know. It's literally stuff about like your wife giving birth and the thoughts that go through your head when you're having a child, and all these, like, some of that stuff was, I don't think he lifted so much as it was just universal, common ground. Yeah. And he did acknowledge that he did lift something.
And here's an interesting question to me. In the 6 years you've been doing comedy in Denver, or the Denver area, has there been like local joke theft that got exposed? Like, is there a Carlos Mencia of Denver open mic comedy, I guess?
Nobody who got in serious trouble. I see, like, when I ran an open mic, I saw people lift all the time, and the honest truth is, most of the time I wouldn't even say anything, because if it's a guy who's doing it for his first time and he's gonna do some Mitch Hedberg jokes, whatever. If he comes back, I'll say something. If he does it again, but there were so many people who you'd see do it for their first time, and I would recognize 2 or 3 jokes, and I would think, well, okay, you know, I didn't recognize all of those. Some of those were familiar. I'm not going to assume you're trying to steal your way into a career. And to tell you the truth, every time I felt that way, they never came back. And when I ran an open mic in Boulder, there's one guy whose name I won't say, who when I first saw him, he ripped off a lot of stuff, and then the next time I saw him, he was just more or less ripping off the attitude, and then the next time I saw him, he was still reminded me of that guy, but it kind of progressed to the point where, okay, now this isn't stealing, this is just clearly you were influenced by that guy. And then, like, if I watched him now, I would still say definitely that's one of your influences, but it doesn't rub me the wrong way. So I kind of gave some leeway, because when you're starting out, and they even say this, that, you know, you start out imitating, and you move from there, and, you know, somebody who never moves on from imitating, then that becomes a problem. But anyone starting out, I would never go up to somebody their first time, unless they did a 5-minute Mitch Hedberg set word for word, then I would say something. But I saw so many people do a Mitch Hedberg joke or two in their first 5 minutes, to the point where you just go, well, okay, let's see if you're serious about this, and then maybe we'll have a conversation. And I never ended up doing it.
Right.
Because, you know, you're going up in front of your friends, and you want to be funny, and you know that shit is funny. And what's really gratifying is when you hear some open micer doing a Mitch Hedberg joke and it bombs. Which I've heard so many times, where I recognize the joke and it didn't work.
Like the timing is off? Or... yeah,
they didn't deliver it right.
Yeah.
Because honestly, Mitch Hedberg was such a singular comedian. I mean, there are other weird one-liners, but there's never been a sunglasses, acid head one-liner like that, and there never will be. When I started in Denver, Roger Norquist was the closest to that, but even he certainly wasn't lifting material, and he was a different type of acid head one-liner. Honestly, he was weird and on drugs and doing one-liners, but it didn't strike me as what Mitch was doing.
Yeah, I'm sure you see a lot running an open mic.
Running an open mic, you do. Yeah.
Hey, you got any crazy open mic stories?
I mean, one of the things was homeless people would try to come on stage. that happened frequently.
I've seen that.
The open mic I did the longest because we were right by a light rail station, and these guys would walk by off the light rail, hear what was going on, and just walk in, and they'd ask me if they could go up. And I always felt weird telling people they couldn't. I really never told people they couldn't. I would just try to tell them what it was, and maybe you don't want to do this, but I had all kinds of people go up and start freestyling.
Yeah, I've seen that a couple times. Like some down on his luck rapper, just wanting any stage time.
Yeah. So
hilarious.
A guy I know who still does stand-up, when we went on the road together, he would literally, after the show, he would look for karaoke, and he'd go do karaoke and try to do some material. Like, he'd get up there at 12:30 at night and people are expecting,
Sweet Caroline,
and he's trying to pepper in a few jokes in between before the lyrics start.
Yeah.
And people hate it. But he would come up and he'd go, stage time. And it never worked.
That's hilarious.
But that's comedian's mindset.
Have you ever been stiffed? Like not paid for something comedy related?
No, I've been paid, like, I've been told I was going to get paid some amount and did get the full amount. I've never been fully stiffed. That's kind of I heard stories like that.
Have you understood when you got paid less, or is it the kind of situation where you wouldn't work with that person again?
You know, honestly, I've never had that. It's mostly, I've gotten paid like some percentage of it, but that not that many people came, so I'm not gonna protest about it or things like that. I mean, generally speaking, the people I've worked with try to make it right. It seems like those types of stories are kind of from like the past comedy booms where there were just guys who would pay you in cocaine and shit like that, and I've definitely heard stories of people not getting paid and people saying, what are you going to do about it? But now with the internet, and I don't know, I figure people are probably worried of getting publicly outed if they do something like that, which I guess is a good thing.
Yeah, there's more transparency and communication about.
I've done some shows where I could tell that they were not, the people who organized it were not fully satisfied, but they've always paid, and I think it's for that reason that they just don't want to, they may not ever do it again. They may be done with comedy, or they may definitely not want to work with those people again, but I've found people are generally probably worried about their own reputation and worried about their business to the extent where they uphold agreements.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing. You should. I mean, and that's what can get you fucked up as a comedian, is that you're just making verbal agreements. You don't have it on paper. But that's what I mean. Like, most of the time you got it on email somewhere or on Facebook Messenger, so they know that they did say in writing this thing.
All right, we're getting almost back to the car, so good show. Awesome Brinker, Matt Gabriel.
That was fun.
What do they call themselves? Buttermilk Brothers or something?
Do they?
Buttermilk Boys? I'd never heard that before. They have some kind of...
They both did well tonight. They set it up well.
Yeah, and it was a good little crowd, and that was a cool venue. It was like an old converted church or something.
Yeah, I was telling one of the bartenders there, that's a thing now. I did one of those in Alabama where they took this mega church and turned it into there's like 2 breweries in there and a couple of restaurants.
Wow.
People stopped going to church. They got to figure out how to make money somehow.
Yeah, real estate needs to be used. Have you ever done shows in Castle Rock? We parked our cars in Castle Rock, which is south of Denver.
For you and anybody else, there's so many people who live here.
I know.
I've done shows in Palmer Lake.
I did a show in Palmer Lake.
You did?
Yeah, outdoors. 90 degrees.
Really? Was
Yeah.
it good?
No, it was terrible.
Oh.
There was like 7 people. I sold a couple books. That was good.
Oh, all right.
And
I knew a guy who
but
had
90 degrees outside, full sunlight. It was like 2 p.m.
Oh, 2 p.m.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I did a steakhouse in Palmer Lake, and he had an outdoor place that he wanted to do more shows, and he never got back to me.
Huh.
But it actually went pretty well. But yeah, I've done Palmer Lake, I've done Sterling, I've done Colorado Springs. There's one other spot in between Colorado Springs and here that I did once. I can't remember the name of it.
Franktown?
No. But Castle Rock's pretty big. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
There's some hoppin' breweries and
Yeah.
there's
You
a
gotta reach
small
out to 'em.
theater and there's a magic club or something. Yeah, it's on my
as long
to-do
as I've
list.
been doing it, I mean, with 6 years is nothing to some people, but I've never seen a show in Castle Rock.
There
And,
has been a show down here.
There have?
Good Lord, how can I not remember his name? Who's Ben Kronberg ran
Oh.
a show down here.
Okay. Not
And
still
Nathan
going?
Lund told me about it. No, it hasn't been going forever. But the bar where he did it is still around, except they used to do it on the weekends, and the weekends now are music only.
Okay.
Like it's always booked.
Well, I don't know
I might
the
shoot for a
population or
Thursday
anything,
night
but driving
show.
down here, it's big. It's big
Yeah.
enough for probably 2 monthlies,
Yeah,
at least.
yeah.
It might even be big enough for a weekly, because there's probably not that much
Yeah,
live
and it's
entertainment.
easy for the Denver comics to get here.
Oh, yeah.
It's not far away.
Not far at all.
Yeah. You got social media or anything you want to pitch?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on Alan Bromwell on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook.
ALAN.
ALAN.
Okay. It's one of those homonym names.
Yeah, there's a lot of
which one's
misspellings.
the more common? ALLEN or
I see a
ALAN?
lot of ALLEN, but I don't know. I've seen ALLAN,
Huh.
and I even one time, which I thought the guy was fucking with me, but apparently not. I saw ALEN one time,
Huh.
which
I thought you were going to say
disgusting.
YN, which would be even worse.
I'm sure it exists.
Sure,
ALYN.
Yeah.
For a girl, that'd be fine. ALEN just looks so weird to me on paper, but whatever, you can spell it however you want.
Any shows coming up? Anything you're excited about? Any travel?
What am I doing? I got a lot of stuff in March. February, I don't have anything for another 2 weeks. I'm doing that. There's a new club in Boulder I'm doing.
Comedy club?
Yeah, the guy just opened up a
No
club. But that's not until the 15th or something. 15th or 16th.
Huh.
Laugh Lines in Boulder.
Okay.
So we'll see.
Yeah, that's
Could be
cool.
good.
All right, well, thanks everybody for tuning in again. And
Battery didn't die. This is fucking great.
Yeah, we're going this long episode. Check out Alan Bromwell. He's hilarious. He crushed in Colorado Springs tonight. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.